Thanks again, everybody, for being here and spending your Tuesday with us, especially as we're starting to approach the holiday season. So very, very excited to have you all here and to share some great information with you regarding how to build a rewards recognition program that can drive innovation and boost performance. The webinar today is brought to you by Bucket List. We are a #1 employee recognition platform. And with that in mind, I'm very excited today to be able to tap into the mind of Jason Lindstrom. So Jason is a bit of a serial entrepreneur. He's helped build 3 hyper-growth organizations. He is the CEO at Bucket List Rewards, and he's worked with all kinds of organizations, everything from startups all the way up to Fortune 100s, including some real awesome brands like the Royal Bank of Canada, NBA teams like Orlando Magic, universities, hospitals, and much more.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks very much for the introduction, Curtis. And I think the experiences and opportunities I've had are relevant because I always love to share stories in the webinar. So what are we doing for others? Because stories are one of the best ways to learn. And indeed, in today's session, we're going to be sharing a bunch of stories, ideas, tools, and tactics. And at the end, I would certainly love to hear what your favorite takeaway was. And we'll be asking, what was your favorite piece of information? And as always, we're on a mission to help people leaders build the best cultures possible. Yeah, this session is all about you guys. So if any questions pop up, please feel free to type them into the chat window. I think in most cases, we'll just answer them at the end, unless it's maybe short and fast. We might jump on a couple during the middle of the presentation. And now I'd love to introduce my co-host, Curtis. He's an awesome dude. I've had a chance to get to know him for a number of months now. He is our resident culture evangelist. He's held senior leadership positions for over the past 15 years. He's worked with Fortune 100 companies like Microsoft. He's traveled and delivered speaking engagements in over 20 different states. And one of my favorite fun facts about Curtis is he's a former touring rock star, and he has just some awesome stories about being able to entertain people all over North America.
Thank you for that, Jason. By the way, I will not be sharing any of those rock star stories in today's webinar, so you'll have to tune in another time for that. A quick look at our agenda for today, everyone. We're going to start off by talking about some primary motivators and demotivators for staff. And then we're going to jump into sharing one of the secrets for high performance. We'll touch on boosting productivity, fostering innovation. We're going to get into some safety word ideas as well. We'll talk about customer loyalty. And then, as Jason said, we're going to allow some time for Q&A at the end. And we highly encourage these to be interactive. So we're going to ask you some poll questions. If you have, burning questions, just throw them in the chat. We'll address them as we can. We'd love to hear your comments and feedback as we go as well. Awesome.
Thank you, sir. And I think I might kick things off talking about motivators and demotivators. So this first section is really interesting because I know, or I suspect many of you today have a vision as to what motivates staff and maybe what demotivates them. And I'm going to be asking you for your thoughts in 1 second. So there was a survey done by a company called Paychecks, where they surveyed over 1,000 different managers and employees, and to identify how they define and measure productivity and what motivates people. And here's where it gets really interesting. They asked managers what motivates employees, and then they asked employees what motivates employees. So let's make use of the chat window now. I'd love to ask you, the attendees, when managers were asked what they thought motivated team members, what do you think they said? And go ahead and just type your answers into the chat window. And I might give you just a couple seconds to type that answer in there. And of course, we'll share the real answer in a moment here. Money, 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 compensation, money, feedback on their performance. Yeah, money. Awesome. Respect. Yeah. Yes, that's a great one. Comp, trust, development. Awesome. So when managers are asked, some of the things they thought motivated team members were things like teamwork and setting goals. And to be clear, these are just the top 2. There's actually quite a long list. And we'll be sharing a copy of this presentation, and the survey results are actually really fascinating. So I'd encourage you to deep dive in there. But managers said teamwork and setting goals. Now, when they asked employees the same thing, employees also had a long list of answers. I don't know if anybody wants to take a guess as to what employee said. Recognition, yeah, recognition's way up there. Be appreciated, indeed. Compensation, bonuses for abs. You're right, James. Excellent answer. Fair compensation and meaningful work. So meaningful work is actually encompassing. It's a great umbrella statement. There's a lot. It's a loaded phrase. There's a lot of stuff under there, and we'll get into that in a second. What I found so interesting though is what managers thinks motivates people is in fact a little bit out of alignment with what employees said. And what I always find fascinating is when you can get those two things into alignment, of course, it's far easier to motivate your team and staff. So we talked about motivation a little bit. We're going to be talking about what are the biggest demotivators. And I'm just going to launch a quick pop-up survey here. Give me a second. It's our first poll question. So demotivators, this is a little more fun and easy. We'll just get you to vote. So what are the biggest demotivators? I'm going to launch a survey up on screen. Why don't you give, you can choose one answer or multiple answers if you want. Why don't you go ahead and answer? Bad manager. Yes, that's way up. Yeah, great answers, everybody. Awesome. We'll let this run for a few more seconds. Awesome participation. Tons of people are answering. So I'll just share the results because it's kind of fun. So what did you say, the audience? Bad managers was number one. You're right. Feeling invisible, that's way up there. Boring work is indeed very high, and lack of recognition. I'll stop sharing and show you the results. So bad manager was number one. Feeling invisible, number two. Boring or unsatisfying was number three, and lack of recognition was number four. So obviously, why do we share these today? These are the sorts of things you want to try to remove from your work environment and try to correct over time. So those are some things that motivate and demotivate staff. But what I wanted to share today was a shortcut to high performance. And what I find interesting, this is kind of like a secret hiding in plain sight, and I'll just get into it now. It's through the telling of powerful recognition stories. It's about creating heroes inside of your organizations. And what's really fascinating is if you look around at some of the highest performing organizations like Disney, like Google, or even the military, they do an exceptional job of storytelling and celebrating the heroes inside of their organizations. So what is the secret of storytelling? Why does it work? From an evolutionary point of view, people have always learned from stories. People learn through modeling. So whether you're a leader, for those of you who are parents, I'm sure you've seen that. When you demonstrate the right behaviors, when you storytell around the right behaviors, your children do an amazing job of aligning and following those sorts of right behaviors. And what I've found out time and again, there's really a correct way and an incorrect way to do it. And in today's webinar, we'll just share some tips on how to do this correctly. So I've shared this concept before, but I put a little bit of a tweak on it today. A lot of you do monthly or fireside chats, and that's a great opportunity to recognize good work, to begin celebrating those heroes. And what I recommend people do is at the beginning of those sessions, you can have a good news section and have a leader go ahead and share a story about high performance. And I think it's worthwhile having these leaders invest a bit of time and effort to crafting the story. And what do I mean by that? So try to tie in your company values, share visuals or photos. And for bonus points, for those of you with like large distributed teams, it can be worthwhile to turn it into a video or a long email, which can be sent out afterwards. And these are just some quick tips to inspire your team. And what are the results? I think what is obvious, but still worth saying, is if you set a great aspirational hero story or hero's myth, people naturally are inspired by that, and they too want to be recognized as a hero one day. So it sets the bar for performance, and it describes in very simple terms, how do we do business here? This is something we do internally at Bucketless Rewards, and we've reaped the benefits significantly. So it's super fun. It's also quite easy. We do this on a weekly basis at a huddle. We celebrate our employees. We recognize their great work. We take 5 minutes to do it. And just a couple of things we've seen. We recently ran an employee net promoter score. We had an average of 9.7 out of 10, which is crazy good. We've been recognized as one of the greatest places to work. And we've seen it play out in a number of different ways as well. But again, just a quick tip that I highly recommend you to implement into your organization. So I'm going to pivot over now and turn it over to Curtis to talk a little bit about productivity.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jason. And I think I really want to double down on what you said around storytelling. I think it's such a great way for people to learn and for people to get engaged, and really kind of share those memorable moments that happen across your organization and increase the visibility around it. So excellent point. One of the questions that I hear most commonly when talking about employee rewards and recognition is regarding the direct effect that it can have on overall employee productivity. And that because of course, one of the strongest indicators of ultimately how happy your employees are is reflected in how much they're producing for you. So in 2020, Gallup, you're probably all familiar with Gallup, they published the 10th edition of their employee engagement meta-analysis report, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it's the largest study of its kind to date. And the report basically examines decades of employee engagement and performance data. They look at over 2.7 million employees across 110,000 business units and within 54 different industries. And to sum up the results in a few words, it concluded that high levels of employee engagement increase productivity dramatically, which probably doesn't really surprise anybody here. But when we're thinking in terms of a return on investment, which is often what company leaders are really asking about when considering recognition and how to incentivize employees, the value is truly in the numbers that I'm going to share with you next. So according to Apollo, productivity increases by 31% when employees are feeling happy and engaged. And further, leading CRM software HubSpot conducted a survey that found 69% of employees would work harder and be more committed to their employer if their efforts were more appreciated. So the inevitable question around this becomes about the tactics. How can we create and cultivate an environment for employees to thrive and feel engaged, ultimately performing their best and staying committed to the organization? One of the most obvious answers here, of course, is to recognize and call out great work when you see it. A lot of companies are already doing this ad hoc. You probably are, for everyone here today in some fashion, but sometimes introducing something maybe a little bit more formal helps to create a perception of additional value and meaning when it comes to awards. So everyone likes to feel like their good work is being noticed. And of course, one of the best ways that you can show them that their work is being noticed is to formally recognize it through performance-based awards. A great way to start might be to think about the activities that you want to specifically incentivize and then create awards to drive that behavior. So let's say, for example, you're a software as a service company, you're entering a period of growth and you have some ambitious revenue targets that you want to hit. You know, your sales team is going to have to put in some extra effort in order to make that happen for you. So why not create something like a sales superstar award with a really cool reward incentive to help focus the team on reaching those goals? Another example might be if you're in the finance industry, maybe you need some really detailed and time-consuming reports compiled frequently. Why not create something like a monthly number cruncher award that you could distribute to your top performing accountant? You could even make things like that open to nomination as well, which of course would create some healthy competition across your organization and some camaraderie, if that of course makes sense for your business. There's no right or wrong answer when we're thinking about this, but I can guarantee you if you start putting some resources and fun into creating awards that target the very specific behaviors that you want to see from your employees, they're going to appreciate it and stay engaged. And one really great example of that in the tech industry is a company called Storable. So Storable is a leading technology provider for self-storage technology in that industry. Basically, they create software services for everything from like facility management to marketing tools and payment processing services. And like many of us, Jason and myself included, Storable was forced to adopt a remote working environment when the pandemic hit. So employee engagement had been an area for them in which they could have improved in the past, and they had identified that. But when the pandemic hit, they were forced to tackle it head on. And so with that in mind, they launched a brand new employee recognition program that introduced formalized awards to incentivize sales and increase overall productivity across the company. Some of the awards included things like they had a Do More award for employees that took on extra responsibilities outside of their regular job responsibility. And they also had an above and beyond award for things like customer shout outs. And the results that they had really truly speak for themselves. So they conducted an engagement survey after introducing these formalized awards. And even in the wake of the pandemic, they were able to maintain extremely high engagement scores from their staff. And what was really interesting is that most of the employees that participated in those surveys, when they left comments, those comments were centered around the fact that Storable had created an excellent culture through their recognition efforts. So that's one example of how creating productivity through formalized awards can have very specific outcomes on your goals. I wanted to share another quick example that demonstrates how those outcomes can also be achieved without having to allocate a large budget to rewards, because inevitably that's another question that comes is, what if our budgets are really tight? How do we create formalized awards with cool rewards without breaking the bank? So a fun example of that is One Hotel West Hollywood. They're a really cool hotel in California. They attract, a ton of celebrity guests from the entertainment industry. And the expectation there from a service perspective is that their staff consistently perform at a top tier level. So they're always looking for ways to incentivize employees and really encourage people to kind of perform at their best on a day-to-day basis. They were faced with some challenges because, this is sort of an ongoing thing where people need to perform at a certain level. And so they're always looking for new ways to keep people engaged. And they knew that formalized awards could potentially be part of that. But again, they were on a really tight budget. So what they introduced was formalized awards for things like a positive review from a customer on TripAdvisor. So if somebody stayed there, had a great experience, they left a review on TripAdvisor and called out an employee, that employee would be rewarded with something like paid time off or the ability for the employee to choose their own schedule for a month. So no cost or low cost rewards for the employee for very specific behaviors like being reviewed on TripAdvisor. These rewards, although they were inexpensive, so to speak, they were highly coveted by the employees. And as a result, the hotel saw an increase in productivity and their overall service levels. They started getting more positive reviews online as well. And in other words, they found a simple solution to a really complex problem by creating formalized awards and rewarding very specific behaviors, even with a non-monetary piece attached to it.
Awesome. I might add, there's a really great book called The Greatest Management Principle in the World. And to summarize it, it says you get what you reward and recognize. And as Curtis just illustrated with the One Hotel example, whatever you recognize and reward, you're going to see more of that behavior, whether that's TripAdvisor reviews. In the hospitality sector, I've also seen things like incentivizing in quick service restaurants, incentivizing speed of service, incentivizing customer service. I've seen even things get as specific as speed of service inside of a drive-through. And the organization I'm referring to is Chick-fil-A, which is, I think for some people love them, some people have mixed feelings about the organization, but regardless, they've done a great job recognizing and rewarding staff. And with that one particular reward, the organization or the franchise that did it, they actually had one of the fastest drive-through times in the United States. So yeah, recognition and rewards drives behavior and performance. Cool. So speaking of driving behavior and performance, I'd love to talk a little bit about what type of rewards can create a culture that values innovation. So I think innovation matters a lot to a whole variety of organizations, specifically technology and finance and a lot of knowledge-based organizations. And I'd love to share a short story from how Google did it. And I've shared the story previously, but it's worthwhile mentioning it again because they've done such a good job. So Google is known as a great workplace. They've won awards for providing a great culture. I think, however, if you're to summarize what makes them such a great place to work, this quote from Laszlo Bock, he's the former head of people over at Google, does a great job of it. And what he says is that Google is one of the best places to work, not because of all the cool perks, but because we take excellent care of our people. Employee recognition is one of the most effective tools to keep people engaged and make them feel valuable. And indeed, a good recognition program can lower turnover by more than 30% and really drive up engagement. It also can increase innovation. And why don't we share and speak to that a little bit more? So Google does, in fact, have a full enterprise recognition programs. So they have a peer recognition program, a manager spot bonus program. They recognize teams, and they support it with a full platform that's fully integrated. But something they did as well, or in addition to all those rewards, is something called the Founders Award. And the Founders Award was a program that recognized and rewarded innovation. And so they rolled this program out. That's some really cool awards attached to this, and I'll speak to that in a moment. And they basically, again, recognized massively innovative and impactful programs. And a couple of programs that emerged from the Founders Awards was Gmail and Google AdSense. And not only were these like really innovative programs, really innovative applications that probably everybody on this call has used Gmail, and many of us have probably used Google AdSense, it also drove a ridiculous amount of revenue for the organization. It turns out, does anybody want to take a guess how much revenue Google AdSense drives for Google each year? You want to type that in the chat window? Or should I just show it to you? I like if I just show the group. Turns out it's $146 billion annually is driven from Google AdSense. So by recognizing and rewarding innovation, you will indeed see innovative programs emerge, and these programs can drive a ton of revenue for your organization as well. So just a huge ROI attached to this as well. So lastly, this is always a fun fact for us. Google tried rewarding staff with cash. Google also tried rewarding staff with experiences. And as it turns out, experiences were far better than cash. Cash, especially when it was given out in larger denominations, created a sense of jealousy between staff. And after a bunch of A/B testing, which is something Google would do with rewards, they found out that experiences were far more impactful. They actually gave out team trips, so great chance for people to bond with one another and to go to a fun location. Awesome. And I'll turn it back over to Curtis now to talk a bit about safety.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about workplace safety because, obviously it's incredibly important for so many reasons and should really always be a priority. But there are ways that you can incentivize it, and it will have an interesting impact on the business. So I get a lot of questions around how to create an effective reward and recognition program for employees that are specifically working in plants or manufacturing facilities. Because that's often, a different demographic from like your sales performers or your software engineers. It's a different group of people. So, how do we find ways to get those extremely valuable employees motivated and engaged, while at the same time finding ways to encourage the kind of behavior that you want to see and that will ultimately benefit your organization the most? So one awesome strategy that I've seen is that's been really effective is to create an award that incentivizes following very specific safety procedures. Ultimately, in addition to keeping your employees healthy, happy, and able to work, incentivizing workplace safety has a significant impact on the overall performance of your business. So according to Liberty Mutual Institute for Safety, every $1 that a company invests in its workplace safety returns approximately $4.41, which obviously is worth every penny of that investment. And in the US, over 12 million people employed in this space, 400,000 non-fatal injuries were reported annually by that group. So I wonder how much those injuries ended up costing a company in productivity, especially when you consider that in 2019, the total cost of work injuries in the US annually was $171 billion. Unbelievable when I read that number. So in summary, although your employees in manufacturing facilities might be a little bit of a different breed than some of your more like client-facing staff, for example, there's still some really great ways that you can incentivize and recognize the types of behaviors that can benefit your business, and safety is a really cool example of that. So I wanted to share a story from a company called General Sheet Metal. General Sheet Metal is a female-led business. They're based out of Oregon, and they found a ton of success by introducing some safety awards for their staff. So specifically, what they did was created a safety award that can be distributed by their on-site managers. Essentially, managers are empowered to issue the award to employees who have demonstrated that they're thoroughly providing the appropriate safety procedures on site. Another really cool thing that they do is that they reward employees who point out and address potentially unsafe working situations. So obviously, it's really important to never walk past a problem like that. And General Sheet Metal has decided to formally encourage employees to call it out when they see it. And they've had a ton of success. In fact, workplace safety is something that General Sheet Metal is known extremely well for. And as a result, they've become an employer of choice. So people want to come work for General Sheet Metal for that reason. And they've received a ton of industry awards as well and acknowledgements for their commitment to safety. So some really cool stuff from a female-led business that's put an emphasis on creating safety awards and incentivizing that behavior.
Awesome. Thanks very much. And it's funny, like I think a lot of times people think about safety as like maybe, oh, that's a problem or an opportunity area for a company like General Sheet Metal. But again, from my experience, like, and as you kind of mentioned, Curtis, it applies to so many different industries like healthcare, hospital matters, right? Like industrial, manufacturing, frontline workers, it matters again and again. So cool. But carrying along with the whole vein and idea of what type of rewards can help with performance and productivity, next up, we're going to talk about customer loyalty. So how do you use awards to create customer loyalty? This is a really fun topic for us because this is something that's near and dear to our hearts. To speak broadly about the importance of customer satisfaction, I'm sure everybody on the call loves great customer service, but here's some relevant facts to reiterate that. So first, 73% of customers say they stay local to a brand because of friendly customer service reps. 77% of happy customers are likely to share a positive brand experience. And then on the flip side, when you have a bad experience, people who have a bad experience or net demoters are far more likely to share that story than those people who have a great experience. So you obviously want to provide a great experience because it makes your team and company proud, and it's net good for the organization. I'd love to talk a little bit about how we do it here at Bucketlist Rewards. So as I mentioned up front, customer service really is near and dear to our heart. One of our core values, we just have 4 of them, but one of our core values is care for customers. And we talk about it on a daily basis and we celebrate it weekly. Up front, I talked about that idea of hero stories. One of our heroes, or frequently our hero stories, is about the topic of caring for customers and providing exceptional customer service. And what we wanted to do was really reward employees who help create a great customer journey. So what did that look like? As I mentioned, we live and obviously use our own product, and our team is recognizing one another for great customer service on the daily, and we talk about it at the weekly huddle. We also offer something called the Promoter Award. So in summary, there's something called the Net Promoter Score. I'm sure some of you may use it, but it's pretty simple. At the end of a customer engagement, you ask a customer out of 10, how likely are you to refer us? If people give you a 9 or a 10, they're true promoters. If they give you less than 6, you're a demoter. And so what we do at Bucketlist is we ask the question. We ask the question 30 days after launch, and we hand out an award anytime a client gives us a 9 or a 10 out of 10. And we again celebrate this at a monthly meeting. And what are the results? We have a world-class Net Promoter Score. We're off the charts. I think our average score out of 10 is around a 9.8 out of 10 for customer satisfaction. What's really cool is it doesn't matter if you're in tech, customer service always matters. So a few moments ago, Curtis was talking about how One Hotels provided rewards for positive reviews on TripAdvisors. So in hospitality, a 5-star TripAdvisor reward can be meaningful. If you're a restaurant, you can incentivize Yelp feedback, positive Yelp feedback. In healthcare, it can be a patient care award. And in retail, it can be things like a 5-star Google review award. It applies across all sectors. And as I mentioned up front, our Net Promoter Score is off the charts. We're awfully proud of this. But again, it's just because we incentivize and recognize the great work that happens on a daily and a weekly basis. Awesome. So that brings us all the way to the summary slide. We'll be opening it up to Q&A in just a few moments. But as I mentioned up front, we'd love to hear, what did you find most useful and enjoyable from today's session. So maybe if you want to go ahead in the chat window, just type what you thought was great or what you might have, your favorite takeaway might have been. So what did we talk about? We talked and shared some facts around what motivates and demotivates staff. We also shared some secrets of and the importance of storytelling. We talked about how to boost productivity through rewards. And we also talked about how to reward innovation and customer service. But from that list, did anything really stand out to you? I'd love to make that a question of the group. Go ahead and type that in the chat window. Anybody? And as we're waiting, I'm going to get teed up and get ready to share get into the Q&A here as well. Very good. Awesome. Yeah. Oh, cool. So Katie, you said storytelling, finding ways to recognize team members publicly so others know what behaviors are valued. James, the idea of experiential rewards rather than monetary. Awesome. Patricia, it was interesting to hear that employees prefer experiences over money. Absolutely. There's so it wasn't just Google that did that. There's oh my goodness, there's a university that ran a study on that exact same topic and found the exact same finding, and it was a scientific study with control groups. So it's peer-reviewed scientific approach to find out whether cash is better than experiences, and they said experiences were more meaningful as well. Awesome. It looks like some of you are already getting into the questions, which we'll jump into in a moment. But before we get into the questions, a couple of minor housekeeping things. So I think Curtis has a cool offer for everybody today.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So before we get to Q&A, just wanted to take a quick moment for those that are interested to share a little bit more about Bucket List Rewards as a company. So we're a #1 ranked employee rewards and recognition platform, and we have a ton of experience in creating unique recognition solutions for companies of all shapes and sizes. We have a robust platform for peer-to-peer recognition, manager spot bonuses, recognition for years of service, and much more. And I would say our major focus at Bucket List is really to provide a solution that's easy, save you time, and can be an effective tool for recognizing and rewarding your staff. So you get to work with awesome industry experts like Jason. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about what Bucket List can help do for you guys, please, I think Jason just launched a poll. Just click yes on that, and we're happy to chat with you a little further about what we could do for you.
Awesome. I'll let that run for about another 4 or 5 seconds. Then we'll go ahead and end poll. Wonderful. Awesome. And then obviously the credits. So I know a bunch of you may have dialed in, so I'm just going to read these out as well. So for HRCI, it's 577704. And for SHRM, it's 21 PFNVG. And we'll be sharing a copy of this deck as well to everybody who attended today's session. And with that, we can get into the question and answer side of things. And I've already seen a couple of questions popping up, which is just awesome. So I'm going to grab the first one. So the first one that I was asked was, what other kinds of reward regarding innovation can we give to the employees? So maybe I can start off here. And I'm not sure if I totally understand your question, but when it comes to innovation, Aubrey, yeah, we'll repeat the credit numbers. Let me jump back to that slide. There you go. So what other kind of rewards regarding innovation can we give to the employees? So just broadly speaking, I would actually put that question back to you, is what type of innovation matters to your organization? And I'd also break that question up into 2 parts. So what behavior do you want to recognize? And then how do you want to reward and incentivize that behavior? So like innovation can mean different things to different companies. Some of you are into like our software development firms and you want to reward an agile development process. So releasing like products quickly that are bug-free might be kind of an innovative approach or might be meaningful to you. So what does innovation mean to your company and what matters to your senior leadership team? I'd get crystal clear on that, and then I'd build an award around that. And what can that look like? A lot of times, as Curtis suggested earlier, these can be nomination-based awards that you do on a monthly or maybe quarterly based or even annual basis. So there's a bit of thought you might want to put on how you structure the recognition and how people can be nominated. And then how do you hand out the reward? I would just survey your team, ask them how they want to be rewarded. It's something we do all the time here at Bucket List Rewards. And when you ask employees, they'll tell you. They'll for example, in healthcare, a lot of nurses, they just want to be pampered and have a bit of time off, like maybe a half day off, and being sent to the spa is really meaningful to them. So those are a couple of my thoughts on how to recognize and reward innovation. But Curtis, any kind of additional thoughts there?
No, I think you're spot on. And you're actually, it's kind of an excellent segue into the next question that was in the feed there from Brittany, which are, what are some examples of experiences that you could offer? I think the example you just gave for nurses in the healthcare space is a really awesome one, Jay. Finding ways for people to really take that moment to self-pamper. But it really often does depend on how your employees want to be rewarded. What do they want to see? What are they into? And so Jason alluded to this, surveying staff is a great way to find that out. Let's find out what they're into. I think the key thing is really trying to make it feel personalized in some way, because again, that creates those memorable moments that someone will forever associate with your organization, because it's going to hold more meaning for them. So that can come in tons of different forms. Some examples, the self-pampering is a great one. Wine tasting tours, brewery tours. Maybe you've got people who are super into adrenaline and they want to go whitewater rafting or, skydiving, or maybe it's something like a day at Top Golf. There's tons of different ideas. And I think the key is really finding out what your employees are into and then rewarding them based on that.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Curtis. And thank you for the questions, everybody. You can enter questions publicly in the chat window, by the way, or you can also enter them through the Q&A window as well. And those are more anonymous as well. So I see one quick one through the QA chat window. And maybe Curtis, if you want to answer this. So if somebody wants to get started with recognition, where is a good place to start?
I think, probably the best thing you can do is just to start doing it. First of all, if you're not already, just recognizing great things as they happen. So call out great things as you see it. Often it's really good to have that come sort of from the top down as well. So have managers and leaders call out great behaviors as they see them. Certainly there are some more formalized approaches that you can take as well. For example, we talked about Bucket List as a platform. There's ways that we can provide sort of a mechanism for you to give those recognitions. But I think the easiest way to start today, if you're not already doing it, is just to call out some really cool, daily activities as you see them, some great work as it's happening. Do that in company meetings, make it public, make it something that other people in the company can see. And that would be a great way to start. Anything you wanted to add to that, Jay?
Yeah, I think that was a great overview. If I was to summarize that into a phrase, starting with peer recognition, enabling employees to recognize one another's, or at the very least managers to recognize staff for living company values, is probably the best and most effective way to start a program. Why is that? A lot of times staff, when they are enabled to recognize one another, you'll see a ton of recognition taking place. Also, peer recognition is one of the most impactful tools to lowering turnover, which matters to a lot of you these days with a great resignation. So when staff are recognized for great work, you're going to lower voluntary turnover and you're going to increase engagement. And so, Curtis described how to do that very, very well. So peer recognition is a fantastic place to start. Awesome. So I think we've checked off all the questions, and I think we've gone through the majority of content here. And I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody for attending today. There's one more
another question that came in. Yeah.
You want to jump on that one, and then we'll move to wrap up?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, here we go. We got some more questions coming in here as well. So from Kathia, what would be the best and fair way to nominate employees? A lot of different ways that you could do this. And it obviously depends on the types of awards and things like that you're wanting to create. But if you're doing something, let's say like a team player award, I would just make sure that the nomination is, open to everybody. It's open to all departments. It's communicated widely so that people know how to use it. And probably most importantly, it's easy for them to do it. So whatever process you choose for that, just make sure that it's really easy for people to be able to follow it, so that everyone feels like they can participate.
Awesome. And not, there's a ton of ways to recognize staff and to collect those nominations. Bucket List does have a great nomination process where managers can review it and then vet the recognition and attach it to an award. So if you want help with that, again, we're happy to support you with it. Of course, you could probably do that manually with spreadsheets and web forms and all that good stuff as well. There's also another good question around what is the best reward we can give to employees to enhance the company values? I just reiterate that whole concept of peer recognition. So what is the best reward? I think it starts with recognition, allowing staff to recognize one another, and enforcing or encouraging them to attach company values to said recognition. And then what's the best way to reward them? I think you can, again, survey your staff, ask them how they want to be rewarded, and then just reward them with what they ask. But some popular awards that we've seen again time and again are things like time off. Pampering staff can be very, very popular. Again, whether that's a spa day or getting a chance to go to a brewery. Sports games can also be a ton of fun. And as a bonus or super bonus, when you can recognize an employee and their spouse or partner, you'll obviously get extra mileage out of that, because if you take care of the whole family of an employee, that's deeply appreciated. So you can kind of reach into their home life and make everybody feel appreciated. That's amazing. And we've seen that, or I've seen that in my experience, and it's very, very powerful. Awesome. Well, good sort of last minute questions. I love it. I think now I'll actually move to begin wrapping everything up. If extra questions do come in, please feel free to connect with Curtis or I on LinkedIn. Please feel free to email us questions as well. We're more than happy to answer those. But I guess in summary, I wanted to say thank you so much for everybody for joining us today. I hope you found the information really valuable, and I hope everybody has a fantastic Tuesday.